So I am Alison Johnston. I am the lead policy officer in Scotland for the Office of the Information Commissioner. So profiling is focusing on the individual. So it's someone who is identifiable, you know exactly who you're profiling and you are using information to make decisions about them. Whereas with the segmentation, you have a large volume of raw data that potentially can't be identified to anyone or assigned to any one individual. It's just you're using it to get an overall picture. So say you were to go into a street, your anonymous segmentation of it would say there are 62% of the street are adults, or 40% of the street are females. Whereas with profiling it would be Mr. Smith at number 1 works for this organisation, earns this much, goes on holiday to here. Mr. Johnson, who lives at number 2, he's retired, but this is what his potential pension was because this is what he used to do. So you're putting it, profiles but very specific to the individual, whereas your segmentation is just looking at as a whole. It's not looking at any one individual in particular. But what you do have to be cautious about when you're working with segmentation, when you get down to very low numbers, that's when people can potentially be identified. So things like postcodes that are really rural or up in the Highlands, sometimes that postcode will only relate to one address. It doesn't relate to a street or anything like that. So you need to think about the volume of data you're working with and whether or not it can make people identifiable. There's nothing wrong with profiling. Profiling is allowed, but you've got to be open and honest and you've got to tell people you're doing it. That was what our big issue was with the charities at the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, was the fact they hadn't told people that they were profiling them. So they were using their data, they were breaching the Data Protection Act and using their data illegally because they were profiling them without telling them. As long as you're open and honest with people, you're transparent and you tell people that you are going to be profiling them, then you can. Just be aware though of what your legal basis is, because if you're relying on consent or legitimate interests, then they can object to you profiling them. The other thing to be aware of as well, something that was getting done by not just charities, we see this in other organisations as well, is people going out and finding additional information through online services or other publicly available information. So it's information that's not been given to them by the individual. They have gone and found this out themselves and started using it. So again, that's a misuse of information because people don't know they've got that information and they're using it for a purpose that's unknown.